If you start getting into a place where you practice gratitude, you realize how ungrateful you are generally. I should be crying every time I breathe.
I'm Micah, I'm from New Jersey, and I'm here to talk about...
My name is Youssoupha Myers.
My name is
I'm 28
Rosman
years
Palacios.
old.
I'm
Dr.
27
Ramsey
years old. Scanyers. I go by Dr. S.
Inside Voices, C1, take one.
Without judgment. No one does. I don't even think about freedom. It's too controversial of an idea. Freedom to them is the freedom to do whatever they want. People want the freedom to hire people that look just like them. People want freedom.
What do you wish the men in your life spoke about more openly amongst themselves?
That's a good one.
The men in my life?
This is a great question, right?
I mean, a lot of things. I don't know if they say thank you enough. Or I'm sorry enough.
Trauma, if I could sum it up in one word. Maybe fear.
Their pain, their heartache, their struggles. I'm thinking about that's my father and my uncles.
My friends and I act like idiots. You know, we still act like we're in middle school with the mother jokes, and we're not serious people a lot of the times, you know? We talk about sports, we talk about our families, you know, we talk a little bit about work. We don't talk that much about life, you know? Even my best friends have a hard time being vulnerable and saying, hey, how are you really doing?
I think men should, first of all, be honest all the time, be real all the time, have a lot more empathy. I think there's a loss of empathy. And I really think that they should really be a lot more open about how they're really feeling. How are you truly feeling? What's really going on today, in this moment? Not tomorrow, not yesterday, right now.
Honesty. Okay. My name is Darren Alleyne. I'm Quari Alleyne's father. I'm age 50. Be 51 next month. It's a blessing. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. I came to the States in 1980. I was about 7 years old.
How has your relationship with honesty shifted through your own failures and missteps, perceived failures and missteps in your life, and now looking and reflecting back on that as a fully formed 50-year-old man?
I've seen the hurt, you know, that not being honest did to people in my life, you know, whether it's relationships I had, family members, you know, I seen the pain it caused, and a lot of it wasn't even necessary. It was basically what I knew, you know, what I seen other people do, or, you know, trying to hide behind something, you know, thinking that I'm protecting your heart, you know, and I'm really not. And honestly, not giving people more credit, you know, in who they are, you know, where I feel I gotta mislead them, you know what I'm saying? And all they want is the truth. However they deal with it and digest it, you know, it would be, you know. So yeah, that was really that change for me, seeing that hurt.
I think one good thing to unlearn that I've been unlearning is all your lies are true too, you know? So like everything that you say a lie about and you think you're evading and getting away with it, you're creating a false reality for yourself. So you're creating like a better platform for confusion to continue to exist in your life. It's like if I tell you I'm gonna be here at 11, I'm gonna tell someone I'm gonna be there at 12 and tell someone I'm gonna be there at 1, but I don't plan on seeing any of y'all today. I've now created 3 people who are confused in their life, who have expectations that I didn't meet, and now I will suffer as a person who doesn't keep their word. So now the worth of what I say, right? And even personally, you if you do that to yourself, that's how you can start not loving yourself very easily, you know, because you don't even respect how you talk, you know.
Inside voices, I love the name of that because we've all got these inside voices that we manage. So over my career, especially early on, I've attended to my own inside voices and the challenges from my upbringing and coming up as a foster kid and adopted kid. So that really inspired a lot of my interest in understanding myself in the context of this very interesting family and my relationship with myself and myself.
Inside voice, scene one, take one, Dr. Lehman.
I'm David Lehman, pushing 60, and I'm here because you asked me to be here. And I believe in what you're doing here.
Dr. Lehman, could I also get you to state your profession as well? I think it's important.
Yeah, well, I'm a clinical neuropsychologist, been at this for over 20 years, therapist for 35 plus years, my whole career. Student of the mind, student of the brain, and I'm committed to growth and development and mental health. Feelings is one of those things that men do not talk about. You know, we guard against the exposure of those feelings because they put us at risk. And if we were to overgeneralize, I'm going to overgeneralize, men are the protectors and the providers. And you can't, like in war or on the street outside this building, go out there not on guard to protect yourself, protect who you're with, and be able to provide like a living or provide a home and provide guidance and support to the people, your brood, your clan, your family. So we're physically made up for that. So when you say vulnerability, there's no room for vulnerability out there.
We talk a lot amongst men about being strong and about being courageous. But one of the bravest things I feel like you could do is to allow yourself to be vulnerable, because vulnerability is really about just releasing it and not being concerned or worried about the outcome. It's really just getting it out. And if we could teach more young men as early as possible that it's okay to get things out, I think we'll see ourselves show up as the best versions of ourselves a lot earlier and a lot sooner.
That's something that I still do struggle with to this day. But ironically, I can be vulnerable with strangers, but towards the people that I love and to the people that I'm close with, man, that's a difficult navigate. Seems as high as Mount Everest, you know? Because why is it that from a complete stranger I could be open and honest and vulnerable and share my imperfections and impurities, but towards the people that I love, I think that there's a bigger disconnect there that I haven't identified as of late or as of yet.
I think when I was growing up, I was still, my dad was really vulnerable with me, my siblings, my family. I think growing up in high school and middle school, you get influenced a little bit with being vulnerable. You kind of want to, there is still that like machismo kind of thing happening when you're growing up a little bit. Like, I want to be tough, I want to be cool, you know what I mean? And as I've gotten older though, and I've been through a lot of situations and I've learned a lot from them, I think I gained that grounding of knowing what it means to be vulnerable and to come into any situation and just practice love and empathy and compassion. And I know those words keep coming up, but I really believe that is being a man, in my opinion, or that's the future, I think.
I grew up in a house where it was misogynistic, brutal, a lot of rage, a lot of anger, a lot of alcoholism and stuff like that. It's just my legacy that I was unfortunately given. And I wanted to make sure that I changed that and that it was different and that there was a left turn. I didn't want to go on that path at all. I knew at 9, I would sit there and tell my dad, I'm 5 steps ahead of you, bro.
Inside voice, scene 1, take 1, meet the Rogers.
I think that there's a baggage that comes with being machismo or, trying to be this man that you think you should be. And the baggage gets released when you become vulnerable, when you open up as a man. So I think there's a power in that.
Like I said earlier, it's a lot of pretending back then. You know, you come outside and you had to have another persona. You had to. It was, else you wouldn't survive, you know, in the element that I came from. Whether it was something you wore, it was a costume, it was a character that you were transforming into when you went outside. You had to kind of work that up before you even went to certain areas, you know what I mean? And now, it's just, kids are just who they are. I don't care how I look. I don't care how I sound. It's just, I'm being 100% me. And I think that it makes, at points, be a problem for me because I'm old school, I guess. But I kind of enjoy it now, you know? And seeing people really identifying with their own mental health, I didn't see that growing up, you know? Knowing that I had my own traumas and didn't realize it till I became a parent myself or started working with underage youth and things like that. Now I get to see what their parents' life was like, and those were triggers for those kids. And now I see and identify it, you know? So I welcome it, to be honest with you, man.
I think a lot of men are conditioned to believe that being emotional is dangerous, because of, number one, the side effects that can come with it, right? Being emotional, right? Somebody might use the things that you're going to say or that you're expressing against you, right? But I think that as a man, as I continue to grow, I recognize that, you know, more than anything, it isn't about the way that, you know, people can weaponize the things that you share so much as it is being able to own your truth and being able to hone in on who it is that you are. Because at the end of the day, you don't have control over other people, but you do have control over yourself. And the most damaging thing you could ever do to yourself is to deny yourself your reality. And our emotions are our guides. So if you're denying your guide, you're denying who you are, and you're also not on path to being in alignment with who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world.
My dad, as I grew up, was a very masculine, you know what I'm saying, dude. It was like, that's the dude that you want to be like. But then I started to realize more and more that there were certain little nuances in which I would question. I don't really like to live life in the idea that I'm boxed into what the definition of what man is, you know? The idea I'm boxed into what someone else may have once put the stipulation around what it takes to be a man. I try to create the idea that what does it mean to be a man, not what does it take to be a man.
To be a man growing up was, you didn't cry. You didn't hit girls. You didn't wear pink. Seriously, like you didn't wear pink. You faced everything head on. Nothing's a problem. You get your ass whooped. That's good for you. This was literally the upbringing. You know what I mean? Being tough was the key for everything, you know? You couldn't be vulnerable.
How have you explored your own vulnerability within your life?
I think as a kid, I was able to express myself way more. And then at a certain age, my parents would almost like push on me, like, why are you crying? Like, you're 8 years old, you should be crying. Which is a terrible thing. Like, you're a child, you're supposed to be able to open up and reveal who you are. And at a certain point, you just start pushing it down and suppressing and bottling up until you explode. And that's just not healthy. And then that goes into adulthood. Like, you don't just drop that. It stays with you. And if anything comes up anymore, it's like you react so harshly. Like if somebody challenges you or questions you, you're quick to react. Almost like a snake versus a worm. They both shape the same way, but if you step on a worm, it's not gonna do shit. Like if you step on a snake, it's gonna come back and bite you. And I think that's a good example of being bottled up. The snake is quick to react.
If I could ask you to describe your childhood in 3 words, man, what would they be?
Traumatized. That's serious. Traumatized. You know, and even though you asked me that a while back, we laughed about it. It was like a week later, I'm like, yeah, you are traumatized. you know, but I always knew it, but I never really tapped in. I'm always listening to traumatized people, you know, or even assisting, comforting. Never tapped in on mine. So believe it or not, when you asked me, I joked about it. But being by myself one day, a week later, I was like, no, you gave him the right answer, you know? So it's definitely that, you know? It comes from a lot, good trauma, bad trauma. But the bad trauma definitely outweighed my life, and it reflected to people I love. I had to do a lot of work to get away from it, you know, because I can't even do the work I do, you know? And I can't even show it today. Talk about it, express it, feel it, but I can't even show it because I think if I do, the people who count on me, they'll see me as weak. I can't perform for them. So technically, I think I'm still traumatized.
When there are moments in your life where you're forced to be vulnerable and you may not want to, what is the physical response that you feel in those moments?
That's a tough one. Vulnerability, like to me, you know, I have a lot of like friends and people that I care about, but they're not everybody I can see myself being vulnerable with. The physical response is like true tightness in my chest. It's like anxiousness in my gut. Vulnerability to me kind of feels like a risk sometimes. And, you know, I've had moments where, like Dante, for instance, like we've both cried in the same space together, you know, so like we've both been able to be vulnerable, but it's hard to be vulnerable in general. And it is very like a physical, like eerie kind of feeling. Just because like, I don't really come from a space where everybody could understand what I feel like people could understand. Like Chris said, like I was raised by a bunch of women too. So like when you're growing up as a man, but then there's so much like femininity around you, it's hard for you to kind of know how to express your vulnerability because you're a guy at the end of the day. So, but the physical feeling is more like, you know, it's all over here.
I grew up, you know, in a matriarchal family. So there's a lot of women, and we felt as if, you know, there was a pressure to, or I felt that there was a pressure to, you know, be the man amongst women. And that lack of masculine energy was something that I had to find and harness amongst myself. And so as much as I learned about, you know, from women and blessed to be raised by the women that I was raised by, I always felt like there was something lacking and there was a certain pressure that I didn't understand where that was coming from. And, you know, growing up and traveling and meeting different people, I realized, you know, I was missing that masculine figure, that compass that was directing me and guiding me to where I needed to go.
How did your parents' own trauma impact you?
Oh man, that's a trigger, Quari. A lot of emotional abuse, you know. But it was something that I knew that I would deal with, and I wouldn't allow that to be something my children deal with or my son deal with. It shaped me differently, and I think for the better, to where I felt I became, you know, a pretty solid dad, you know, pretty solid, and wanted to shelter you from, you know, those kind of hard emotional lessons that it doesn't go anywhere. You know, you put it away a little bit, but it doesn't go anywhere. Certain things happen and it just triggers that. So you deal with it all your life, but it doesn't go anywhere. But you put it I put it away enough to make sure that I did what I needed to do and be where I needed to be for you.
I made sure that, you know, the number one thing for me is unconditionally loving them. Unconditionally. And that's really hard for people. The idea that you can actually love someone without conditions, and love them the way they are and be there for them, showing up for them, you know, being really involved in their lives, asking them how they're doing, what's going on. You know, I also don't believe, and this is controversial a little bit, I've talked to parents about it, I don't believe in punishment. It's not something I believe in. I'm interested in sitting down and talking to you and saying, why did we do that? And I use the word we a lot. We, as a unit. It's a unit. We are all in this together. So let's figure out a way that we can get out of it. Let's figure out a way that we can do this better. How can we approach this differently? And, you know, and then also one of the things that happened in our house was there were certain words they weren't allowed to say. And that sounds crazy because it sounds like we're like, you know, censoring, but stupid, dumb, idiot, shut up, bored is not a word. Bored is a word. You've been to our house. You've been to, if you're bored here, I don't know what to say. And bored anywhere. How are you bored? And so those are words that they couldn't say. And I remember when they were really little, they used to turn to me. If a kid said bored, they would go. They would look at me like, what are we going to do? Like, and I go, it's okay. You can't say that. They can. That's okay. But it's like, and again, there's no punishment. It was just like, so let's talk about that kid who was using the word bored, or the kid who came to the house and told his dad to shut up. And I said, that's a reason why we're not allowed to use that word.
I came up, as I said, a foster kid originally, then eventually adopted, and then that adopted father died at 7. So I didn't have a father. So I have no regrets of not having a father per se, but it was not an easy road. When I look back, I mine my development for the gold nuggets of what I can learn today to become better, okay? So in the frame of that question is, what do I wish was different? I wish nothing was different, because to your point, all roads lead to Rome. Here I am. Not despite it, because of it. Wouldn't change a thing. If I were to borrow from that and coach or share a tip with someone else, I'd say, if you're a father, because that's another thing men don't like to talk about, the wounds or the missings or the hurts associated with father, either not having one or having the not good enough one or whatever that might be, to being one themselves and dealing with that or not dealing with that, I would say, talk about it, deal with it, face it, turn toward it, because there's a phrase, and the phrase goes, that which you resist, persists. So you don't deal with it, it's gonna deal with you. And when I say deal with it, it doesn't mean wrestle it to the ground, because you can't, but get to know it. Get to know your issues, your emotions that go with parenting, either yours or you being a parent.
I definitely have had more grace with my dad. Like in the past year or so, I'll say I was very much harder on him last year, and I was coming to terms with who he is as a person. But now, understanding how hard it must have been for him, it's way harder than it could be for me now too. So I can't even imagine how hard it was for him being a person, going through what he was going through at such a young age. But I still hold some sort of grudge towards him, which is just, I think, with age. I think I'll learn more, and I'll be better as a person and give him that full grace. But I do see that he had struggles with his father and struggles with himself being a man and things like that. So he's human as well. That's what I'm saying. He's human as well, and I didn't see that when I was younger at all. He was like this great ideology person to me that could do no wrong, and he knew everything. But getting older, you kind of see how human he is, how vulnerable and a sensitive person my dad could be. And it's like, and it's also like were you lying to me all those years? Like you was all like that big strong guy, but like, nah, he's just, older now. He's opening up. He can't put on that big front super dad thing anymore for me.
I had a father that was present. He didn't connect with me emotionally the way that I needed to. Up until, ironically, it was Tuesday, Wednesday, that him and I had a conversation, and I asked this question: do you think that you were the father that I needed? When I asked him that, I've never heard him cry before, and he broke down because he was telling me that he did the best that he could. And I think the younger version of myself really needed to hear that. It was him in telling me that he did all that he could, and a deeper understanding that I didn't know of and judged off of the book that his parents died before he was a father. And that's, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of hated myself a little bit for it, because here I am painting a narrative or a picture of a perception that I've created over the years that my father didn't care about me.
I don't try to bring my parents into my marriage or into my situation too much, because, as a man, you try to stand on your feet and figure it out, because I know that's what my dad did. I never saw him calling back to Colombia, hey mom, hey dad, how do I do this? He figured it out. He did a great job. So that was the example that I had, and that's kind of how I go about it.
How does the statement, my ego has messed up things in my life, resonate?
It definitely resonates with me, because there's been times where I needed to share, I needed to speak up, I needed to express my feelings around different topics and experiences, and I allowed my ego to sort of get in the way of that. And it's really interesting, because of the work that I do as a mental health therapist and a clinician. Like, I should know better. And even though I know these things and I help young men with these things all the time, I myself have moments in which I struggle, and my ego sort of gets in the way. And that just reminds me that no matter how much you think you know, healing is not linear. So it's these ups and downs and these peaks and valleys. And there's been times where I allowed my ego to sort of prevent me from being brave and going into spaces that are safe and being able to talk about what I'm going through.
My ego helps me speak up. Most of the time, I feel like it's better to not say anything, but in the moments where I feel like I'm most affected, my ego allows me to speak up, so it helps me in those instances. Sometimes when that comes out, it can be a little brash, but that's when I'm like probably feeling the pain the most.
I had to unlearn my ego. My ego, there's a big ego there, and I think everyone can say that about themselves, but I feel like, and that's where I've worked really hard on my empathy. I think with anyone, what happens is I pull back. The moment you're coming at me and my ego's getting poked, and that big bubble, my head's getting big, and you want to downsize me, I start to lash out. And so I'll say the wrong thing, I'll do the wrong thing, I'll be the wrong person. And then within that container is also, I walk away with low self-esteem, I walk away feeling really shitty about myself in every way, and it cascades down to a self-hatred that I can't get out of. And then sometimes it'll work its way down to a depression. And I'll walk away and go, why am I feeling so depressed? And I go, oh, that's because someone just poked my ego and I didn't know how to respond correctly, or I don't have a healthy ego. Because there's a healthy ego and then there's the unhealthy ego. And so I've had to work a lot around that. And as you know, I've been in arenas where you have to be, I've been in arenas where people have egos that you cannot, excuse my French, fucking believe. You can't believe these fucking egos. You're like, really? I can't look at you, but I'm in a scene with you? Like literally that's happened to me. It's crazy because I'm not good enough to be with this person. Yeah, it's crazy. That'll work on you, So what happens is you have to be really comfortable with yourself. I've done a lot of work over the years on building up a healthy ego. This is the second part of the conversation, right? Like the question, which is,
How has your ego helped you?
right. So how has my ego helped me? Again, in that situation where someone asked me not to talk to them, I was strong enough to go, I can do this without you. I can do this without you. And I'm coming from low, like it's what I've been learned through therapy and all that. It's called no esteem. I've had to go from no esteem to some esteem to maybe a little bit of esteem to esteemed. And what I find is it's by doing esteemable things that I've gotten esteem. It's not by me becoming something, becoming this or becoming that, or becoming a star ball player or becoming this, or even being a great dad. It's really about me doing esteemable things. And that includes doing things that are altruistic, where I'm doing something and I don't want anything in return. I'm doing this because I want to. And then I walk away and I can sleep that night because I did something and I didn't expect anything in return. And that helps my ego. I can walk into situations and feel like I've done esteemable things. And that's where that starts to shape an ego that's healthy. And it's not this giant thing. And I've never turned to anyone and go, you can't look at me. And I know I've learned from those things. Those things are presented to you for a reason. These things come into your path for a reason. I know who that person is. I know how they treated me. I walk away, just like with my father, and go, I'm not going to be that person.
I think my mind has shifted to, it's probably best, it's probably a better operating system if you just assumed everyone knew the worst thing about you. That's probably a better place to operate from, because you're gonna be more graceful. You're gonna extend forgiveness. Like you're gonna have you're gonna be more than who you are now. If for you everything is a secret, but for everyone else it's public information and etc. And I think our relationship to idolatry is something that is cracking. Thankfully, so I say all that to say, as I get platformed, I wonder how healthy am I as a person to pay attention to.
What has your relationship with grief in your life taught you about yourself?
That I suppressed a lot of trauma. It wasn't until those moments where I lost the person that I should have had those conversations with the most that I realized I fell short, So don't leave anything unsaid. Doesn't help you, probably won't help that person either.
When my mom passed, that took a big toll on me, After going through something like that, I just fear losing myself and completely losing focus. It's a hard thing to go through, the emotions, you got your good days, your bad days, but in all of it, you still have yourself. So it's important to keep that connection with yourself. Rather, you just got to find peace, you got to talk to yourself, but it's important to lock in with yourself, because once you lose yourself, it's very hard to find yourself again,
How has your relationship with grief changed over the years?
I don't know that it has, to be honest. The three that I've lost, two was very tragic, and one was because it was sick. My grandmother passing, she was a huge role in my life. She was my calm in the storm. And my two other childhood friends, they passed, through gun violence. And that doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't. It stays with you. You hear a laugh sometimes. I hear it. I see a smile sometimes. And it sits. It doesn't go anywhere, man. But you're able to push through, but it's tough. It's tough. It's not like, your people your age are passing because you've seen them suffering ill, When one takes his own life and leaves a life behind, and one life gets taken because of a simple, silly situation at 15 years old, not even starting his life, it hurts to this day.
I feel like I'm unlearning.
I'm unlearning a lot of bad habits that I didn't know was bad habits, bro. Real talk. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know that, like, a bad habit in the sense is like, you could be dealing with something like a struggle, and in your hood is normal for like people to like self-destruct when something isn't going right. You know what I'm saying? Like, people just self-destruct. They fall into certain habits that's like, how do I explain it in a sense, like self-medicate, right? You're not realizing that that's a bad habit because everyone in your neighborhood is doing that. You take a look at different environments and people that are thriving and everything. And one thing I learned from just my family members, like just recently, like I lost my uncle. I was talking to his son, my cousin. He's talking to me. We're just having a normal conversation. He starts talking to me about prayer. He's 21 years old, bro. And I'm just like, damn, like, am I praying enough? Am I believing enough? Am I meditating enough? And it's just like I have before, but like I wasn't because in my neighborhood, that's not normalized. But here's someone that's like striving, thriving in a good environment, in college, in his master's program. And I see him doing that. I'm just like, yo, maybe that's something I need to pick up on myself. My little cousin, he don't even know. He just helped me in that just conversation. He didn't even know it.
It's so much of it's generational. And so it's unlearning the generational anger, the rage, and that's been a big deal for me because, you know, I was, you know, that was just something that I had to break apart. And it took many, many years, and I'm still in process. I mean, the good news is, and I say this to these guys all the time, you know, we're never done with knowledge, and self-knowledge especially, self-inflection, and it's always about learning. You go get that degree, go get another degree, go keep learning, go on YouTube, learn more things. And I feel like that's how I try to live my life, is learning more about myself. What are the things that I can improve upon, unlearn? And for me, it's a lot of things that Jack was saying and Lou was saying. It's a lot of the judgmental. It's a lot of like the, you know, I have a trust issue. I have a huge trust issue, especially with men. I don't trust men. And that's like my Achilles heel, to be honest. So good luck when I first meet you, because I don't trust you.
What has tested your faith most in your life?
What has tested my faith? Yeah. Go next one.
What has tested my faith? Failure, my shame in failure. In school, in relationships, where I should have trusted and I didn't, where I did trust and I shouldn't. And where I fail myself and I fail my own standards, that tests me still. Because there's a ghost of inadequacy, or you could say imposter, you know? I'm considered an expert on the brain. Little do they know, kind of thing. That little voice, you know? And it tests me. And then I stand up and I speak truth to word, and then I step away and I said, I get it. I'm just being tested. And every test around my own shame or sense or fear of failure moves me further in a direction of confidence and clarity, but it never goes away.
You know, my mom is getting in her mid-50s, and my stepfather is pushing his 60s. And I've recently been thinking a lot more of like, how could I possibly help them? Because I feel like I often think about like how I want to get married and have kids and taking care of them, but then I also think about like, who's gonna take care of my folks, you know? Like, I have an older sister who she's not like the most, like, she's not concerned about everybody else, for lack of a better term. So I feel like I do have to step up and kind of, you know, help provide for, not only for the family that I want, like my wife and kids, but also for, you know, my parents, because I don't want my mom working in her 60s and 70s, you know, like, I feel like nobody else is gonna take care of her.
I think growing up, because I watched my mom struggle so much, I really tried to follow a certain plan that would lead me to what I thought was success, which was essentially having enough money to support her lifestyle and my lifestyle. And so you fast forward to where we are now, my mom is still working, right? And I'm still trying to navigate adulthood and my career. And so I'm learning not to view where I'm currently at as a failure, but just continue to find grace and, you know, and really just give praise to what I've accomplished so far. And so that when I do have kids, and even, you know, my nieces and nephews, they learn that you can have a path and it, you know, you don't have to follow it 100% to still be a success story.
What do you hope people see when they see you?
I hope people see somebody that's, you know, still figuring it out. I'm coming from, you know, a far place. So to kind of look back, you know, is something that I can even consider an achievement, being able to look back, you know, when, you know, you're in survival mode for such a long time, you know, you're always looking forward because you know, but when you get to a place of peace and serenity, you know, you're able to look back and, you know, that in and of itself is an achievement. And like, yeah, that's what I want people to, you know, remember me for, is somebody that didn't always have peace, you know, and upon finding that, and now I revel in that. I that's where I lay my head at night, you know, is in a peaceful place. So that's what I'm gonna be remembered for, to be a peaceful person.
If you could talk to your inner child today from your perspective now, what would you say?
I kind of did already, like a year and a half ago, where you basically, there's this, I think it's like a therapist practice. Someone else is a lot more knowledgeable on this, I'm sure, but something along the lines of you envision your childhood self on a corner, and like you show up to them and you spend a day with them, and then you give them a hug and then you walk away. I remember just bawling because I realized like not only how much am I trying to make that kid as like astounded as possible, but just how miraculous this whole process is. And yeah, I think it's just a hug, you know, just hug them.
I would say to think less. Do less time thinking and more time reacting and feeling, I would say. Just being pretty effortless. Don't think too much about what you're doing. Just do and see the feedback from yourself, from your intuition, from others, and kind of be present as much as you can. Don't think too much. Don't stress too much. Just live.
What were you taught about women growing up, and what do you feel you either misunderstood or still misunderstand about women today?
First, I know nothing about women. Zip zero. We're not even gonna play that game. Nothing. You know, maybe when I was 20-something, I thought I knew them. You know nothing about women, brother. I love them though, you know what I mean? Love them, but what do I know? You know, I got sister, mother, daughter, I don't know shit. You know, because every time I think I do, they show me something new. And I'm like, you know, it's, you know, in perspective, it's like you might see a lady or your mom or somebody handles something this way. And then 2 weeks, she won't handle it the same way. I'm like, I don't know, I'm lost. I'm lost. I don't know, y'all. Just let them be. You know, if y'all fellas listening, man, let women do them, man. Don't try to figure it out, you know, because you won't. Talking to you, Quari. You know, you know, these questions, these trick questions and stuff, trying to get women see this. I'll be all over the internet getting bashed. That's what you do. That's what Gueye, he's setting us up. I'm gonna tell him outside when I go out.
There was a time period where Justin Timberlake's Justified album existed, and then Get Rich or Die Trying existed in the same space, and women wanted you to be both. It was like kind of balancing those two things, the emotional aspects and like being, I guess, quote unquote, what people consider to be a man.
This is when we talk about the vulnerabilities of emotion become a problem. So we take that sensibility that is to be honored and we bring it home, and we bring anger home, and we bring defense against the exposure of those more vulnerable feelings home. To who? To our partner or our children. And that's where we can let down, see? That's the safe place, and that's the counterbalance, see? And with the right person, the right partner, male, woman, doesn't matter, that person will hold the space for us to let down. So that's one place where we want to get to know the vulnerability of the expression of emotion that we otherwise, it's not a good idea to protect. Out here in the world, makes a lot of sense. At home, not necessarily such a good idea. We're socially conditioned, I think you brought that up at another time as well, and we also are socially conditioned on we don't learn about what you and I are talking about right now in school. That's another sort of campaign I'm on. Raising young people and exposing young people, early career people, to turn toward and address those things they don't speak of, largely emotions, largely vulnerable emotions. So it starts with looking at the emotion and being with the emotion, and with those, and being willing to be with the vulnerabilities of those emotions with people around you who will support and also be connected to you through emotion. Women or a partner won't connect with us very well with our anger, but shame, they're leaning in. Hurt, they're leaning in. That's the place for that, okay? So there's something about that we don't talk enough about.
I didn't know how to give love, and I'll keep saying unconditionally, but I'm really just, I can't believe that I've received this gift of these children and ended up being the person that I am because of them. I am the person I am today because of my children. And my children are everything, everything. I've had careers, I've had made money, I've bought houses, I've done everything. None of it means anything to me except my children. That's the only thing that means anything to me. And they will tell you that. I'm motivated by them, I'm inspired by them. It's everything that I've ever wanted, and I've gotten it.
I would say I'm most proud of that. I would probably say that my mom is happy with me. Yeah, and my dad, you know what I'm saying? But I'm definitely, because I feel like I gave her a run. Like, I was just one of us that stressed her out. So, for her to be alive and to just be happy that her son is like doing something with himself, I'm focused, it makes me feel good just knowing that she's happy with me, and I'm not being careful with my words by no means. Like, I'm happy my dad is happy with me, but I always feel like with him it's like, it's like he probably wouldn't, if I wasn't, focused or doing the right thing, he would be like, fuck him. My mom would still be honest. He's still doing something. He's still doing something, He's smoking crack, but he's not hurting nobody. He's smoking crack, he's not robbing banks,
What are you most proud of in your life?
You. And look where I'm at today. Seeing the transformation, just seeing, everything that you've become, but at the same time, seeing my parents are still here. Me still having a close relationship with my mother and father, my siblings, family dynamic, is still here and it's present. And that's, what I'm thankful for and proud of. the most.
Right there.
All right.
Beautiful.
All right.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. I know I probably ain't looking. I'm not a camera person, so I know probably times I ain't looking at the camera. You know. All right. Who, Quari? Well, listen, man, he be all right. All right.
Never gonna forget this. Appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Thank you.